Welcome back to YiaYia's Studio, part 2 of Understitching. As we had last time, we have our cute little black shirt, but instead of a black facing this time, we have seam binding, which can be used oftentimes for facings for necklines or arms or whatever. So I've gone ahead and pinned this on, and we have our seam, our fold rather, of the binding along the 5/8" seam of the black shirt, because we want to be consistent with that. Pinned it on ahead of time just to make it easier. Two schools of thoughts on pins. Some people like to run over them with their needle. Some people like to pull them out ahead of time. I prefer to run over them with my needle. The danger being sometimes that needle will hit the top of the pin and break. But we're going to go ahead and take that chance. So here we go. We're going to stitch in the little ditch of that folded area in the bias tape that is lined up against our 5/8" seam. And we're just going to attach the seam binding to our pretend shirt. Now we're going to go ahead and take those pins out and shove them into our little cushion. And notice I didn't break anything, so that's a good thing. Now we're going to do that same cutting that we did last time. We're going to trim, and again, my little cuts are less than 5/8 inches. They might be 3/8, they might be a 1/2 inch. Just enough to make sure you follow the bend. With really severe bends, you have more closely cut stitches. With straight pieces, you can do them further apart. It's just a matter of how much do you need that fabric to bend in a nice smooth way versus in a crinkled way. So we have those all cut, and now, like we did with the facing, we're going to go ahead and turn our bias tape toward the inside of the neck. So the shirt's the outside, bias tape is the inside. This is always a good time to press, but we're not pressing right now because we're doing a cute video. So we're going to go ahead and finger smooth down. Again, all of these cut pieces are going to go up against the bias tape away from the front facing, and we're going to pull these two apart because we're really trying to smooth down that seam so there's no crinkle here either. If you don't have it pulled tautly, it's going to kind of crinkle up. So the more taut this can be, the smoother it can be, trying to make sure I've got all those black pieces pulled away from the front of the shirt and going under the bias tape. And we can tell by just doing that, when we go ahead and fold this down, see how smoothly this is sitting. We're not seeing any of that white bias tape peeking out of the black shirt because it is nicely held down by the process of understitching. Before we were to top stitch, this is always, again, a good time to go ahead and press, because you can see in these top corners where it's really curving, it's going to want to pull apart and you want it to lay smooth. But since we're not pressing, we're just going to go ahead and try to finger smooth it down so we can see how nice it looks. So let's go ahead and do our top stitching. And again, we're holding down as nicely as we can to try to keep this curve as smooth as possible. Just gently following the curve of the shirt. Don't want to push it because if we get too carried away, it is going to have lumpy bumps in it. And follow up this top edge. And here we can see we have a really nice and smooth collar or neckline, and if you press it, it's like smooth as silk, and you can see how nice and flat it is on the back side, and that is the wonder of understitching.